We got a busy day ahead. It is the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tanguay Along for the Ride podcast, Zoomcast, however you choose to obtain this content. Obviously, we have to start with the Celtics guys. I haven't had a chance to talk to you since the Ime situation went down. We'll get to Joe Mazulla in a minute. But Bob, let's get your thoughts on how the whole process took place with Ime Udoka being suspended for a year because of his involvement with a female Boston Celtic employee, and how the Celtics handled it.
All right, I have to back up. First of all, I'm not going to be able to, we're all still trying to learn exactly what happened. I have a couple of things to contribute, but I got it. You'll love this one. Let's back up a week ago today. Today's the 28th as we record, which, by the way, is the 62nd anniversary of the Ted Williams' final at bat. Now, and home run. On the 21st, the evening of the 21st, Wednesday night, last week, the ABCD Hoop Dreams event, the annual event, was held at the Boston Garden. I am co-host along with Brad Stevens. And at 5 p.m., I get a phone call from my friend Bobby Elias of ABCD that Brad is telling him that though he will be there doing his glad handing and taking pictures with the teams, with and being a host, he won't be able to do the regular scheduled question and answer that follows the basketball portion of the evening, okay? And this is something that we've instituted from the very beginning when it was just me and Doc, and then it was me, Doc, and Brad, and now it's me and Doc and Nick. Well, Bob and I were wondering, wow, what's that all about? Is he afraid? And we said, we dismissed this, but the only thing we could think of is he doesn't want to talk about Robert Williams.
Were you wrong?
Well, no, but what else? We couldn't figure out what would cause this. Yeah. So the evening he comes, I talk with him. We chit chat. He does his thing. He gives an interview to Gary Washburn of the Globe. He sits for an interview, which you saw in the paper the next day, and act like nothing is going on. Nothing. We have no indication of what the reason is he won't stay with us, or that anything is off kilter to start with, even though we know something must be going on. The next morning, I awake, I come down to the kitchen, I turn on the television, and there, lo and behold, is a crawl on SportsCenter. Ime Udoka.
What happened that night? Bob, literally, you're telling me 5 o'clock. You're telling me 5 o'clock, Brad Stevens is with you. He leaves at what time, do you think?
No. 5 o'clock, I get the call that he won't be joining me after the ceremony, after the basketball.
What time was the ceremony? What time was everything?
6 o'clock, and at 8:30 we were done, going into the Legends for dinner, and then the Q&A. He bolted about 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, and I think everything broke around 8. I don't know what time it was.
It's around 8, Jeff. Because Woj broke it, right?
So I wonder if he walked out when Woj broke it. And I still feel like, and maybe I'm wrong here, I still feel like maybe it was Udoka's agent who leaked this thing to Woj to get out ahead of it. Consensual, all of that.
Right. So that's my little portion of the story.
Right. And you never knew, Bob. You would never know. Brad Stevens is brilliant at this type. He's been the most mature person since I met him when he was probably in his 20s. That Brad Stevens handles adverse situations about in his 20s, you would have thought he was in his 50s or 60s with the maturity that and you never would have known. Am I correct from being around him?
No, nothing. It was just, we were curious. Anyway, so you didn't know what was going on, but that's how it happened. He left between 8 and 8:15. He left. And I don't know, approximately, because I wasn't, obviously I wasn't worrying about anything. I wasn't charting anything. I just knew he wasn't going to be with me. So, I wound up doing a Q&A by myself, But anyway, that's my story. Now, as far as, I've turned down most radio interviews in the last week because I don't know anything. I heard one story, which I'm not going to repeat here, because it would be feeding into the gossip that we know and the Twitter nonsense. I've heard one version, and it makes sense, but until that's confirmed, you ain't going to hear it from outside from me.
So hard with all the rumors. You're hearing a different one all the time. And, people are upset that the Celtics haven't been more transparent, but how transparent can they be in this situation? Also, like, their hands are tied to some degree. So I understand it. And the biggest problem I have is with the Twitter idiots, obviously, that are throwing out their women's names that work for the Celtics.
One in particular, one in particular, which of course would be the first conclusion that people would jump to for pretty obvious reasons. And, that you would jump to that conclusion. Apparently it is absolutely positively not that woman.
Yes.
And she will, by the way, come out of this when it's all said and done and we find out the truth very well for this, I think, actually. But now.
But it was nobody credible putting out.
Oh, no.
Anybody's
name.
Speculation. It was a bunch of idiots. It's a bunch of the Twitter idiots. Yeah. And unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but it's true, the new generation now. The new generation that you can just throw anything out there and everybody's got a voice and everybody's got an Instagram or a Twitter and they put it out and then other people believe it and they go with it. And it's bullshit, but it's nobody credible who is throwing out rumors of Celtics staffers' names, hopefully.
Well, sure. And also people jump to conclusions with individuals in the media or individuals who work in-house with the Celtics. And it's very unfair. And these people have to come out and defend themselves and say, hey, not me. Right. And it's very unfortunate. It is very unfortunate. The problem with social media is that human nature takes precedence over journalism. Human nature is that if Bob and Gary and Jeff are sitting in a coffee shop and it's just the three of us and we go, geez, who do you think it is? But it's just the three of us, right? And you go, wow, give me, that's what people do. But now it's put on this. Yeah. And it's terrible. It's terrible. And so what I want to do here is I want to also help. I want to defend the Celtics a little bit because I agree with both of you. What could they do? So let's talk about the legal ramifications here. Obviously, to me, as I looked at this, you say, okay, does the punishment fit the crime? Well, we don't know what the crime is.
Right, we have no idea.
So this is where we're going to assume a little bit. And Bob, if you're uncomfortable with this, that's fine. But I'm going to be as genteel as I can. You have a coach that took his team to the NBA Finals. You have a coach that is considered to be one of the great up-and-coming coaches in the NBA. He's gone for a full season, possibly forever, okay? So you automatically sit there and you deduct, this was really bad. And I think the Celtics were quiet because I think the Celtics were legally liable. Obviously, I'm not going to say it's sexual harassment, but I don't know. But it is a relationship in the workplace, which for the employer is a legal nightmare. Legal nightmare. So Wick is like, whoa. And I'm sure all the attorneys are telling Wick, whoa, okay? So it had to be
significant,
extremely dangerous for the Boston Celtics in a number of ways to keep Ime Udoka on staff. Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this was somebody who reported to Ime Udoka. So obviously there are...
We know that. Do we know that?
I don't know if she directly reported, but certainly she worked with Ime and again, was he her direct report? I don't know the answer to that, but she was working with Ime and effectively he was her boss in some regards. Okay. So, that makes it difficult.
That's a nightmare. That is a nightmare for the Celtics.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, again, I'm not going to go into the speculation. I hate these things. And to be honest, I've dealt with plenty of them at the college level, plenty of them. Now, they never got to the point where the coaches were suspended, other than obviously and he wasn't suspended, the Rick Pitino saga, right? The Rick Pitino one is the one everybody thinks about. There were plenty of others. And my take has always been until they're suspended or fired or it affects their job, or then I'm not reporting on it. I'm not. I don't. That's personal in my opinion. If it doesn't affect again them being suspended, not being there, not being even at practice, something like that, that has an impact. So then it becomes our job to report on it. So I think for those people that were saying, well, if he didn't get fired, why did this ever have to come? Of course it had to come out. He's suspended for a year. Of course something is going to come out. You're not going to be able to say, well, Ime Udoka stepped away for health reasons, because number one, if the Celtics did that, we know then it would leak out and it would bite the Celtics in the ass.
You cannot cover this up. It would be a public relations nightmare. They would call it a cover-up. Personally, I think the Celtics did the best they could with a keg of dynamite. Bob, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up the speculation here. Bob, do you have anything to add?
No, only that to amplify what you were saying about Ime's credentials. This had to be an extremely difficult and painful and nightmarish decision for the Celtics. They know how good a coach he is. The world knows now pretty good how good a coach he is. And with the stakes, here they go. In 2 weeks, 3 weeks time now from the Gallinari announcement, from prime contender to mystery guest to a degree. Right. To a degree, with a 34-year-old rookie coach, we're going to get to that next.
Oh yeah, that's next.
But it had to be something that really disturbed them. Then they felt they had no choice. Now, does anyone here think he will ever return? I don't. No. I don't. This is not going to be a Cora thing. He's not going to come back to the Celtics.
It'd be hard to imagine unless guys, the only way I see it is again, they're leaving the door open, obviously, whether it's legally or just they are.
Everything is legal in this point, in my opinion.
And that's probably true. But if somehow it gets resolved in the players, the only way he comes back is if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown come forward and say, we need Ime Udoka back. We didn't have a great year. We need him back. It wasn't as bad as what was out there. But I'm with you, Bob. I don't think he comes back.
Or if there's some kind of the most far-fetched thing, but if it ever were to happen, the odds are 3-1, a public absolution from the female in question.
Sure.
And I don't expect that to happen. It's not inconceivable. It's highly doubtful. But in any event, I think I don't expect to see him back in 23-24. No.
Okay. So now we move on. Now let's talk. We're going to get to Mazulla in a minute, but I want to talk about the players because I found it very interesting that at Media Day, the players, like Jason Tatum said, they found out about Ime's suspension on social media. Is that true? Or was that just a brilliant PR move for the players to say, I don't know anything? Do we believe that? Is that a white lie?
They might not have known. They might not have gotten the official word. I'm sure they had a pretty good idea something was coming down, but they might not have been officially informed.
I thought it was a brilliant move. I thought it was a brilliant move by the Celtics.
Of course. Now, I actually thought it was impressive that a lot of the players did talk about this instead of saying, hey, you know what? We want to talk about this season. Because they could have done that. They could have done that. They didn't, and I give them credit for that.
You're right. So, no, I doubt that I think they were legitimately blindsided if they had it. So, I mean, it's my guess.
Who knows? We're speculating. Okay, let's get to the coach. Let's get to the players. Now, I'm going to start with Jeff on this because how long have you known Joe Mazulla?
Probably since he was 16, 17, somewhere around there.
Okay, right? Tell us about him and also the baggage that Brad addressed with the alleged assault incidents in college, the alleged alcohol abuse in college.
Yeah, and he hit it head on. He said, listen, that's not who I am anymore. My daughter's a freshman at Indiana. Right now she's having a good old time, partying, having fun, and I'm hoping that she's not going to be the same partier in a year even. So people change. I know I'm not the same idiot knucklehead that I was when I went to school at Arizona. People do change. Joe Mazulla, what I will say, extremely smart, poised, knows the game. I remember sitting down with him. It's funny. He was a head coach at Fairmont State as recently as 3.5 years ago now. I sat down with him when I went to a game in Morgantown. Had to be going back. He was an assistant at Fairmont State. And then I think he went to like the Maine Red Claws and then went back and was a head coach. So I had lunch with him. I don't know how many years ago it was now, 6, 7 years ago in Morgantown when I was there for a game against West Virginia was playing Oklahoma. And we sat for a couple hours and super mature. And I think that's what Brad Stevens likes about Joe Mazulla is his maturity. If you watched him last year, guys, it's amazing, first of all, because I don't think we've ever seen this, a guy come from the second row.
Right.
For those that aren't listening, there's a first row, which is your top assistants, your top 3, whatever it is. And then you got a second row. And usually you get promoted. You're trying to go from the second row, which is sitting behind the bench, to the first row. And then eventually maybe you're a head coach. But to go from the second row to the head coach is unheard of. But if you watch the playoffs closely last year, Joe Mazulla was the coordinator. I mean, he really, they have offensive, defensive coordinators, and Mazulla took that role and was super involved. And again, very, very smart, sharp basketball mind. He can be he can jump dudes like he can. I just think at 34 years old, in the role he's been put in, this is going to be incredibly difficult. Ime was older, played in the league, has been around high-profile guys and kind of led up to this role. Mazzulla's been thrust into this role, and I just don't know if the players are going to have the same level of – respect isn't the word. I think they'll have respect, but almost like a little bit of fear is I think what they ultimately had in Ime Udoka, and that helped him turn it around. I just don't know if they're going to have that for Joe. I think Joe's been put into a very, very difficult situation. I think he'll be ready to be a head coach in time. I just don't know if it's now.
The one good, he does have the Jason Tatum immediate seal of approval. I saw that. And in the modern NBA, it's nice to have the best player on your side. It's a good start. I want to just tell, this is the 2010-11 Blue Ribbon yearbook. I have all 40 over behind me that they've ever been done. All right. So here is what, in the West Virginia preview of his senior year, here's a little excerpt about who the guy, I read this so our listeners and viewers can get a sense of who this guy is and what he was like as a player and what kind of person, you're likely to find him to be. The 6'2" Mazulla is the epitome of toughness. He underwent left shoulder surgery during the 2008-9 season and rehabbed consistently, but the joint still throbbed with pain. It hurt so badly, he shot free throws right-handed, even though he is a natural lefty. He became a reluctant shooter and played in 12 contests in which he never scored. But Mazulla persevered, averaging 16 minutes a game. He did great work when running the point and finished the season with better than 2.1 assist-to-turnover ratio. His signature work came in the NCAA regional final against heavily favored Kentucky when he scored a career-high 17 points, including his first three-point basket of the season. I love that. He also played underneath in West Virginia U's 1-3-1, giving up height but never backing down. Quote, I've had terrific guys playing through a lot of things, Huggins, of course, Huggy Bear, said. Joe certainly was one of those guys. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. If you're injured, you can't play. Joe, without question, was injured. It really was a long road back for him. I've been blessed to have guys like that, unquote. Well, that's the young Joe Mazulla, so you know.
Tough kid. Tough kid. No doubt. No doubt. I mean, that's again, that's all good. But ultimately, if the Celtics struggle out of the gates, it's going to be tough for him, right? It was tough for Ime, right? But Ime needed it. See, Ime needed them to struggle so he could get their attention. Mm-hmm. It's different now. If they struggle now, unfortunately, it's going to be put on Joe Mazulla more than anybody else.
Yeah, it probably will be, Jeff. I understand that. But I want to make 2 points here because I do want to talk about the other options, the other coaches that they didn't choose. Okay. Yeah. But the thing about Mazulla is, to me, is if this team struggles out of the gate, sure, you can blame some of it on him. But okay, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it's time to put on the big boy pants. You went to the finals. You should not need a coach to motivate you or get this team to play well. Okay. That's number one. But what about some of the other options, Jeff? The other guys on the bench who had played in the league. I mean, you mentioned he went from the back row to the front row. Why was Brad so gung-ho on this kid?
That was the surprising thing. And I tweeted that right after. I said, listen, love Joe Mazulla. Think he's going to be a hell of a coach. But yeah, I was surprised that they went with 34-year-old Joe Mazulla over Damon Stoudamire, who's somewhere around my age, 50. He went to Arizona like I did. I've known Damon forever. Damon has been a head coach at the Division I level at the University of Pacific, a tough job in the WCC, did well there. Started as a volunteer guy at Rice University. He's been assistant at Memphis, at Arizona for years. Now, the only thing I can think of, guys, is he's Ime's guy. And do they want to distance themselves a little bit from Ime and not have Ime's guy be the head coach? I don't understand why that would factor in at all. It shouldn't. But I would think that Damon Stoudamire would command a hell of a lot more respect from these players than 34-year-old Joe Mazulla, whose only head coaching experience came at Fairmont State and never played in the NBA. What do NBA players value more than anything? What are they going to respect? Other NBA players or elite basketball minds that have proven it at the highest level, like a Greg Popovich.
How much stock, if any, do you put in that summer league appointment that he was given?
None. I just think Brad's Brad, and he's going to do what he thinks is best for this organization. And he's looking at Joe Mazulla saying, you know what? In my mind, I think that Joe Mazulla gives us the best opportunity.
So far, Brad's been right.
He hired Ime. He hired Ime. I just think Damon's got more shit to him. That's the one thing I would say is Damon could go up to Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown and say, hey, you know what, blank, let's effing go. Like no more of this bullshit. Let's do, where Joe Mazulla is just not going to be able to do that.
Right. Well, we don't think so. We don't know. We
don't know. We don't know.
It's logical to assume that, and that's a not very logical assumption. Yeah. But you have to give, if you're going to buy into him, you got to give some benefit of the doubt to Brad Stevens' judgment.
Yes.
And once again, but it is odd, right? That move caught my eye from the second row to the first row. I know all about that, so I'm curious. But all right, let's just sum it up here. The last 3 weeks have been cataclysmic in the Celtics. As I said, they go from not odds on, but a heavy contender, a short list of favorites. Do you still feel that should be on the short list of favorites?
They should be. Excuse me, Jeff. I feel passionate about this. I understand what Jeff's saying. They should be. These players have been to the NBA Finals. They have been to the finals. They should be. I expect these players, I expect Jason Tatum, I expect Jaylen Brown, I expect them to maintain the integrity of the team and still be a contender. Like, are they going to make the finals? I don't know. It depends. We're going to talk about Khris Middleton in a minute. I don't know. They may have a better season and not make it, but they should be. Of course
they're contenders, Gary. Of course they're contenders. We know that. Are they better or worse than they were when the season ended last year, even after now adding Malcolm Brogdon? Are they better or worse?
Oh, we have to take a 20 here for all of us. And Robert Williams.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
There's an elephant right back over in this corner.
Always. Listen,
Robert Williams.
I'm tired of it, Bob. I'm tired of Listen, I've said it. Now, I also said trade Jaylen Brown, and that didn't look great. But Robert Williams, when his stock goes up, I honestly feel like at this point, trade him, because I just don't know if you're going to be able to rely on this kid. So I know he gives you a different dimension than we've ever had, right? You've ever had in Boston. You've said it, Bob. You've never seen the Celtics have a guy like this in the middle on both ends of the court. Well, probably since Bill Russell. But
that's it. No, but that's right. In this modern world, as the game has evolved and changed, everybody else has seen we had one of these guys, and now we have one. And the numbers are daunting. Out of 324 potential games in 4 years, he's played in 178, and he's hurt again. And now, but and then when he comes back, they went from 4 to 6 after the surgery. Now it's 8 to 12. 12 has taken us into January. Then he's going to have to have
I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it,
but
honestly.
Well, to me, they're not a contender without him, period. End of story.
Not a championship contender.
No. Right. You have to have him.
Because you have Al Horford, who really you don't want to play more than 20 minutes. And now they're trying to – Luke Cornett's practicing with the first – I mean, come on, what are we doing here? Luke Cornett's a third-string big man, ultimately. Yeah. He can make some shots, but you need another guy. Or you got to go small. And that's not going to help Jason Tatum if you start going small. And you can't have him guarding 5 men, most 5 men in the NBA. So, again, my take is, okay, you lost Gallo. You lost Robert Williams right now. You don't have your head coach. Great that you picked up Malcolm Brogdon. Hell of a pickup. I love it. But those 3 guys don't make up for that. And it's Gallo's different. So he wasn't on the team last year. But you're coaching Robert Williams over here, Brogdon over here. I will take the coach and Robert Williams right now over Brogdon. And I love Brogdon.
I think Robert Williams is the key. And Bob, thank you for bringing it up. But can you get anything for him, Jeff, right now? Isn't he damaged?
Not today, but when he gets healthy again and goes through a stretch where he's dominant for 20 games.
Right.
I know people will say, "What? You're out of your mind." But again, what's the best ability? Availability. And Robert Williams doesn't show availability very often.
Athletic Greens, take AG1, you will feel better. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes, trusted by leading health experts. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/hoops. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/hoops to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Athletic Greens. I just got this text from I have to give him credit. So he's a hoop head friend of mine, Chris Pappas, and his thing, it's such a great thought. I don't want to take credit for it. Bob, do you think that Kevin Durant and the Nets got wind of this Ime Udoka situation, and then therefore Durant wanted nothing to do with the Celtics?
I don't think in those terms of it. No. Do I think? No, I don't. That wouldn't even remotely occur to me. But that's way out of my thought process.
I wondered about it, Jeff, because Durant went back to the Nets real quick and said, "Okay, let's get this done. Everything's fine." Did he know that Udoka wasn't going to be around?
They couldn't get enough for him. Yeah. I don't think it was anything to do with Kevin Durant going back. I think they told him, "Hey, Kevin, you know what? We're not giving you away for pennies on the dollar. So you can sit out, which you're not going to do at 34 years old, or you can come back and try to make this work. And you know what? If it doesn't work, we'll try to trade you again."
Nothing to do with it.
That's
no.
I personally love the thought, but it's very dramatic. Okay, moving right on.
You're a novelist, so you're allowed.
I love Bob. I love it. It's so juicy, but you're probably right. It's unlikely. Anyways, Khris Middleton, he said during the Bucks media day, Bob, may not be ready for the season, but expects to be back shortly. How concerned are you if you're Milwaukee?
You're concerned. I mean, he's your second best player. He's an all-star level player. And I've been very honest with people all the offseason. The Celtics are damn lucky that he wasn't around when they played them in the playoffs, period. And that was, so I wouldn't, they're not what they can be. It's their answer to Robert Williams, and it's a different type of player, naturally, but they're not what they can be without him, period. So it knocks them down a perch. They're going to have to bide their time, before they finally become the team that they should be, just as the Celtics are going to have to bide theirs before they get Robert Williams back. So, no, that's important. He's really, there's no question he's the second best player.
Hey, Bob, count me not worried at all, because it's not a knee injury now. It's a wrist injury. Yeah. Now, I know he's been banged up with both now. I get it. The only thing with Khris Middleton, he's a veteran. He's a professional. Like Khris Middleton is like the epitome of just a pro. So I think he'll be fine. He's also not like a ridiculous athlete that these injuries are going to affect how his game translates. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried one bit. And, again, if he misses the first 15, 20 games, it's really irrelevant at the end of the day for Milwaukee. All that matters. And it's the same thing with.
Well, it's true for everybody, that
Exactly.
What's your status on April 15th is what you're worried about. And you got to get
playing enough games together, obviously. But the difference is this Milwaukee team is kind of the same team that it was all last year, other than they added Joe Ingles, who we don't know when he's going to come back from the knee injury that put him out for last year. So, if it was a completely new team, I'd be worried about it. It's the same team with the same DNA. So I think they'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay. Deandre Ayton, and we all know that he had a problem with the Suns. He was benched by his head coach, Monty Williams, in the Game 7 last year when they lost to Dallas. They got blown out. The two have not talked since then. The coach says he did that intentionally to give players his space. The player says, it's all about business. I'm here to play. Is this going to work, Jeff?
This one I'm worried about, Bob. Khris Middleton, not worried. This one, yes, concerned. How do you not talk to a player after the way that season ended? And it's a young player who's got has had some maturity issues over the years a little bit. And I like DeAndre a lot. I can't even understand this, Bob. Why they wouldn't sit down, clear the air before they start. You're just going to act like it never happened?
I totally agree. The look on his face, I saw the bite, it was a look of something, contempt. I don't know. Not good. And I didn't like it. And Monty's explanation, well, there's lots of guys I didn't talk to. No, Monty, there's the one above others that, that you would have had reason to talk to. If I'm a Phoenix enthusiast, I'm a little worried about this. I definitely am. I didn't like the body language of either of them when I saw their responses yesterday.
I don't think he wanted to be there, but again, 4 years, $133 million, that'll make it a whole lot easier to go back to Phoenix. But I think again, if I'm DeAndre Ayton, I'm not really disrespected, but he feels disrespected, right? He feels like he can do more, I'm sure, in another team, which he can. Like, he's a more skilled Robert Williams, guys, in a lot of ways. He's not the shot blocker Robert Williams is, but long, athletic, better scorer.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't really utilize him in that capacity at all. He hasn't really grown. He's been hurt some. But, yeah, it was baffling to watch that. And, Gary, see the look on his face and basically, like, they asked him, like, do you want to be here? And he was basically like, I'm here. I got no choice. I'm going to play hard when I get out there on the court.
Right.
So it was interesting.
This is a definite to be continued for this Phoenix Suns, I can tell you that.
I find this final story here we'll cover very interesting, that the University of Memphis, it is University, was it Memphis University?
No, it's University of Memphis.
I got it right.
University of
Memphis
State.
Has spent
Memphis State University.
Has said the NCAA says you guys are done for 3 years, right? You're suspended. You can't play for 3 years.
No.
Probation.
No, that's not right. They're just on probation. It's not.
I misread that.
They got a slap on the wrist. All it was a little slap on the wrist. Nothing.
Yeah. Okay. And a laughable $5,000 fine.
Everybody gets that, Bob. Everybody gets the $5,000 fine.
But the coach did nothing. Basically.
Well, here's what they were saying. Let me just set it up a little bit. Penny Hardaway is one of the greatest players ever to play at Memphis. Okay. He was a head coach at Memphis East High School before he got the University of Memphis job, right before, when Tubby Smith was the head coach. He then helped pay for James Wiseman to move from Nashville so that he could play for him. Okay, pay like $11,000.
$11,000.
It looked like, to me, according to the bylaws, you're a booster. Right, you play at a school. I'm an Arizona booster now because I've given money to Arizona. He was a Memphis booster. Well, they're saying now he was not a Memphis booster at that point. So they cleared him. They got hit with nothing. Every other school. Listen, when this federal, and this was different. Obviously, this was not a part of the FBI college basketball corruption scandal that broke 5 years ago a little more 5 years ago to the day almost to when we're talking right now. All the schools, at that point, everybody was writing, not me, but everybody's like, oh, 40 coaches are going to get fired. This is going to be the biggest thing ever. Remember, we got the playbook. That's what the FBI said that day. We got the playbook. The playbook basically resulted in the fact that a bunch of assistant coaches went to jail, which was a effing joke, and are out with show causes, and none of the other schools really got hit, okay? The only thing that matters, guys, ultimately is a postseason ban, okay? That's the only thing that matters. Oklahoma State, the only school that got hit with a postseason ban, which is insane unto itself. USC, Creighton, South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn self-imposed when they knew they were going to suck. They weren't going to make the NCAA tournament anyway, so they self-imposed a couple of years ago. But Oklahoma State is the only one that got hit. Everybody else has skated so far. Now we got the two biggest ones still to come. There are four left,
Kansas.
and two of the four are Kansas and Arizona. And Kansas, obviously, being Kansas, Arizona being the fact that Sean Miller was, I felt like, incorrectly put out there with an ESPN report when I was at ESPN. I think they screwed it up at that point and put out a report that was not factually correct, and that put Sean Miller at a different level than everybody else. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But again, nothing happened in Memphis, Gary. This is absolutely zero, a $5,000 fine, probation. Even if you take away some scholarships, it's not that big a deal.
All right, gentlemen. Bob, anything to add on a final note?
No, not at all. Just for people to understand the situation that Penny Hardaway, the unique situation or a very rare situation of a former player who we assume is a wealthy man. We assume that he walked away from an NBA career as a set for life wealth, that he can that he could act in a financial way as he as he did routinely. This is not going to be the case for everybody else. It's a rare. That's all. Just how it came about, and then so you go. All right, that's all.
James. The crazy part is, guys, James Wiseman played 3 games for him.
Yeah, right.
So it didn't matter. Matter.
I just love Penny Hardaway's commercials.
Yeah, those were good. That's how he made real money, by the way.
That's where the real
penny
money
or whatever it was. He made a lot of money.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you again next week. I just think that this offseason has been very interesting for a summer when we weren't going to have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
We've had plenty to talk about.
We sure have.
I'm ready for some balls to bounce. I'm ready.
Yeah, I think we all are.
This episode of the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase.